What would it be like to be on the moon? A question that has intrigued men since long before the invention of the telescope.
To travel.
They say you are taking the sunshine.
Each spring, along toward the end of June, in many of our western
states that use my... Listen to the sound of the sun and the stars.
Spring shooting is illegal, but every autumn, 2 million Americans crouch in the rushes with loaded guns and thrill to the magnificent sport of duck and goose hunting.
I was lost in utter darkness. I was trapped in toxic shame. I was bound by my religion till I chose to break away. Now I'm finding my true colors. For the first time I feel free. Now I'm learning self-compassion, and as I heal I'm finding peace.
I posted this clip a year and a half ago, and since then I've released an EP with a full version of this song as well as other rewritten hymns like It Is Well With My Soul, Amazing Grace, and more. One really special thing about these songs is that most of them feature a choir made up of the voices of my followers. They submitted their recordings to me individually, and I layered them together in my software to make it sound like we are all singing together. The result brings me to tears almost every time I listen to it. I'm incredibly proud of this music, and if you find yourself deconstructing or hurt by your church of origin or going through a faith transition, you will probably experience some relief and healing through these songs. You can find links to my EP and my other content in the link in my bio, and if you like my content, feel free to subscribe to me on YouTube as I'm much more active over there these days. Thank you guys, I love you.
I was lost in utter darkness. I was trapped in toxic shame. I was bound by my religion till I chose to break away. Now I'm finding my true colors.
Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I love to sing your praises. Shout to the Lord, all the earth, let us sing. Power and majesty, praise to the King. Shine, Jesus, shine. Fill this land with the Father's glory. Change my heart, oh God. Make it ever true.
With a smile on my face, feeling
I've seen some videos recently about the wire that goes around the entirety of the outside of the island of Manhattan, which allows the Orthodox Jewish people to leave their apartments and go about the island on the Sabbath. What is it in Scripture that says that you have to stay within the confines of a wire on the Sabbath? Well, this comes from questions about the Sabbath. People said, am I allowed to leave my home? Am I allowed to travel on the Sabbath? You know, probably, go for it. Well, what if I travel for work? Okay, then don't. Well, what if I'm traveling and I just accidentally bring along something that I sell? Okay, enough. No traveling on the Sabbath. What? You mean I can't get out of bed? No, you can get out of bed. You can go anywhere in your house. What about my yard? Yes, you can go in your yard. You gotta have a fence or a wall around it. What if I can't afford a fence or a wall? A string or a wire. Put that around around your yard and you can go anywhere within the confines of that wire. So when it came to the island of Manhattan, people wanted to be able to leave their apartments, but of course they don't have a yard, so they just put a wire around the entire island of Manhattan.
So St. Laurent Imber and St. Jerome Lu are going to be placed in the altar because St. Laurent Imber was the first missionary that came to Singapore. So it shows our connection to the past, and he actually established the Catholic community here in Singapore. And so we are gathering together as one community together with him. And we have St. Jerome Lu, who is actually a catechist. So we have a priest and a lay person. And this actually evokes the new evangelization of the church. It is not only dependent on the clergy, but also with the laity.
Mahalo for your question. So I actually did a couple of videos on Lilo and Stitch and the hula depicted in Lilo and Stitch like a few years ago, so I don't want you to keep scrolling to find those videos. But if you go to YouTube, you can find this video and this video. The first video are the directors talking about how they wanted to portray hula as accurately as possible, especially because Hollywood has had a bad history of doing that. And because they chose to set the movie in Hawaii, they wanted to make sure that people from Hawaii can watch it and be like, hey, that's what we do, yeah. So they met with Kumu Markeli'i Ho'omalu. He's a kumu hula from Hawaii, and his Halau Academy of Hawaiian Arts, which is in Oakland, California. They talked with Kumu Mark, and he explained to them about the history and the significance of hula, the outfits that they wear, the instruments that they use, and the movements. They used his dancers and also Kumu Mark playing the ipuheke, which is that double gourd, as reference, and then you get to see that in the movie. And the second video is actually really cool. It's a side-by-side comparison of the movie and then the actual dancers. Kumu also sings 2 songs in the soundtrack. The first one, Hemele no Lilo, and Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride, along with the Kamehameha School's children's chorus. But let's talk about that first song, Hemele no Lilo. Well, first of all, that's not the original name. We can translate the title Hemele no Lilo to a song for Lilo, the main character of the movie. But the song is actually called Kalakaua. Makes sense because it's about Kalakaua. Here's a screenshot from huapala.org. For those of you who don't know, this is an amazing source to find different songs of Hawaii, and then you get both the Olelo Hawaii version and the English version. And they always have a source, and it explains more about what is the significance of the songs. So already sounds familiar. Kalakaua, ahei noa, kapua mai ole I kala, ea 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 ea. Kapua maila I ka mauna, ke kua hivi o Mauna Kea. So what Kumu Markeli'i Ho'omalu did with this song is that he kind of changed up the melody in a way. So the song itself is authentic to Hawaiian culture. It's an actual song, it's an actual chant that we have. But the melody that goes along with it is a little bit more modern, and that's kind of Kumu Markeli'i Ho'omalu's style. Some people agree with it, some people disagree with it, especially in the hula community. There's a lot of opinions. I think all opinions are valid. I just know that he has a unique style to it. I don't think it makes it right or wrong. Again, a lot of people have different talks, like, is it kahiko? Is it traditional? Is it more awana? Is it modern? Like, is it something in between? But anyways, we all know how the song goes in Lilo and Stitch. Now I'm going to show you guys a different version of it for how it's traditionally performed. guys were able to follow along and recognize some of the words. But as you guys heard, the melody in this is very different from Lilo and Stitch, from how Kumumarkili Ho'omalu did it. And again, there's a lot of different opinions in the hula community. Just from my opinion as a hula dancer, not a kumuhula, but as a hula dancer, I think it's beautiful that we see different traditions, and different kumuhula have different styles of choreographing. As you can see, the dance in this one is very different from how they do it in the movie, or how Kumumarkili Ho'omalu told his dancers to do it. Each has different traditions. Some have the same ones, some have different ones. Some, like Kumumarkili Ho'omalu, likes to create new traditions. And I just think that's beautiful. And I think it shows like the true diversity that our lahui, that our community has. Now, is this me endorsing Disney and saying, oh my God, they're so amazing, they're so perfect, they're such an unproblematic company? No. But for the time of like the early 2000s, and with 2 white directors and handling Hawaiian culture, I will say that they actually did a pretty good job. This should be the standard in how any director or any, person that's handling a movie or a TV show or a play, any of some sort that's depicting a culture that's outside of theirs, this is how they should handle it.
During a divine liturgy, sometime during other services, vespers and matins, etc., altar servers, subdeacons, etc., the people who are assisting the priest and the deacon carry certain things. This is a liturgical fan, a rapidian. If you look closely here, you'll see it's a bit faded, but there's an icon of a 6-winged seraphim. These fans had a practical purpose in the ancient world, if you flutter them like this, you keep the bugs away from the holy things, especially the bread and wine on the altar, but they also quickly came to be understood as symbols of the presence of the angels. So a server might hold these over the gospel as it's read, or over the gifts during the great entrance, the bread and wine, so that the people are reminded that the angels are present praying with us in the liturgy. And what we see even more commonly than that are servers carrying candles. Why would you carry a candle? Well, there's a practical purpose. If you've ever been to liturgy early in the morning, in the winter, in a monastery, I experienced this on Mount Sinai, for example. There's no electric lights. There's about 6 or 8 candles lit throughout the church, and the server comes out with a candle, and the light in the darkness that's produced by that is really substantial. So it actually helps the priest and the deacon simply to see where they're going, but it's also a beautiful symbol, a symbol of how the whole liturgical action is bringing light to the world. So we light candles to honor God. We hold candles near the holy things to show our veneration for them. Just like we hold these fans to show the presence of the angels, we light candles and carry them in processions to honor the holy things.
Third space hot take, here's mine. Apart from our corporate overlords, one of the reasons that we don't have third spaces is because people want to gatekeep who gets to be in the third space, and the third space can't just be for cool people. You have to be cool with a 58-year-old with a bad knee who's going to talk to you about QVC and doesn't understand how the news works. If your third space isn't both accessible to that person and an 11-year-old child who's going to yell skibbity toilet the entire time, it's not a third space.
What if I told you that these churches, despite being built on dry land with foundations of stone and mortar and steel, still carried among them a flotilla of lifeboats? In this series, we're looking at the ways religious values and ideas can appear physically in the built environment of sacred spaces. For people in the Eastern Orthodox churches of Christianity, the tradition of thinking of the church as an ark, the Ark of Salvation, goes back as far as Saint Cyprian of Carthage in the 3rd century AD. Cyprian, a North African bishop and theologian whose work predates even that of St. Augustine and St. Jerome, drew on the established history of interpretation of the stories of Noah and Moses in the Hebrew Bible of Judaism for his understanding of Christian churches. Scholars of Torah had long observed that the word teva, a loan word from Egyptian that in English we translate as ark, appeared in all of Jewish scripture only twice. Its first usage appears in the story of Noah, who survives a world-ending flood by building an ark, or teva, big enough to carry his family and 2 of every kind of animal. A second time, it appears in the story of the prophet Moses, who is rescued from the agents of Pharaoh as a baby by being placed into a basket, or ark, teva, by his mother and sent down the river Nile. For Cyprian and Orthodox Christians throughout history, the churches of their faith can be considered as arks, vessels of deliverance, offering rescue to those inside from the trials of the world outside. In fact, the main gathering space in churches around the world in which congregations gather to sit or stand for service is called the nave. This large, often vaulted space likely shares etymological origin with words like navy and nautical, referring to boats. The word nave connects the shape of the church to that of a ship's hull, and quite possibly the deeper significance of the church as an ark for believers in the rough seas of this life. Maybe you attend church in a building like one we looked at, with a big vaulted nave or a series of domes. Or maybe your church looks nothing like these buildings, but still has a depth of significance and meaning to you and your community. Let us know what matters to you in the comments. Here at Sharing Sacred Spaces, we help people build interreligious community, gain confidence through religious literacy, and experience the transformational power of sacred space. If you'd like to learn more about the work we do, go to our website, sharingsacredspaces.org, or follow us here on social media. And don't forget to like, comment, or share this video. It really helps our content reach new people. Until next time, as always, on behalf of Sharing Sacred Spaces, peace.
Here's an idea. Don't use the legacy of a man deity who was against wealth accumulation to promote wealth accumulation.
Missionaries had a very hard time explaining Christianity to the Cherokee Nation because they didn't use money. Like that line in the Lord's Prayer that says, "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors," was difficult to translate because the Cherokee Nation didn't use currency. So they didn't have much of a need for words about debt or debt forgiveness. Meanwhile, English is the dominant language for global commerce. So a lot of its conception of Christianity is expressed in terms of financial metaphors like So when a big part of the Cherokee Nation adopted Christianity, they did it without a lot of that financial lingo. Like in one version, that line from the Lord's Prayer is translated as, "Pity us for the ways we have strayed, as we pity those who have strayed from us." Now, the Bible uses other financial metaphors and parables, but the interesting thing the missionaries encountered was that without a cultural context of accounting, the idea of using debt as a metaphor for relationships doesn't necessarily make much sense. And maybe in this particular instance of the Lord's Prayer, the Cherokee version is a lot closer to the original meaning of the text than the version that's been filtered through a culture that's so obsessed with money.
We live in the Deep South, an area in the United States where racism is alive and well, whether you are white, black, Middle Eastern, Asian, Indian, Hispanic, or anything in between. I know how some of y'all grew up. Dude, some of your parents and grandparents would have been mortified if you dated someone of a different race. I've seen it firsthand. I have a sibling who got written out of a will because they dated someone of a different race in middle school. Last year on vacation, my brother-in-law, my soon-to-be brother-in-law, who is Hispanic, he got confronted by someone at our condo who asked him if he, quote, jumped the fence in order to sit around our pool with us. And I think it's time for us to stop using the excuse that that's just how it was back then and that's just how I grew up, because that may be the truth, but that doesn't make you any less racist. In fact, if you have a problem with people of different skin colors, then if you end up making it into heaven, you're gonna be super disappointed, because in Revelation 7:9, it says that people of every nation, every tribe, every tongue, and every language, and every color are going to be surrounding the throne of God and worshiping Jesus as their king. And so if you got a problem doing that right now, you may want to reconsider going to heaven.
Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. Let's take a look at a video.
This Isaiah that says that, that one of God's judgments and curses on a nation for unfaithfulness is that they would be ruled by children and women.
So in this clip, Pastor Joel Webbin is rather blithely paraphrasing a specific interpretation and translation of the first two clauses from Isaiah 3:12. And in this tweet that he posted in response to the account that shared this video, he provides the translation from the English Standard Version, the ESV, a notoriously misogynist translation of the Bible. And those first two clauses read in the ESV, "My people, infants are their oppressors, and women rule over them." Now here's the Hebrew of these first two clauses from the Masoretic text. And the problem is, you can't get there from here. You can't get to the ESV's rendering unless you fiddle with the Hebrew. And specifically that first line on top, it says, Ami nogsav ma'olel. And literally that would mean, my people, his oppressors, is extorting. But that's not what the ESV reads, because the ESV wants to drop that mem off of the last word. So instead of being a masculine singular polel participle based on the verbal root to deal harshly or to extort, they want it to mean child. And then they're just going to arbitrarily make it plural instead of singular. And your interpretation of the first line is going to govern how you interpret the second line, because in the MT it says Venashim mashalu vo, or and women rule over them. However, if you understand that first line to refer to oppressors extorting, you can revocalize or repoint or change the vowels of the Masoretic text, a medieval manuscript of the Hebrew Bible, to read Venoshim, which would mean and creditors rule over them. And one of the reasons that we know this is a valid reading from the ancient world is because that's precisely how the Septuagint understood the Hebrew and translated it into Greek. And here is the New English translation of the Septuagint's rendering of this verse from Isaiah. O my people, your exactors strip you clean, and your creditors lord it over you. So in the end, it's not perfectly clear precisely what these first two clauses of Isaiah 3:12 are saying. You have no choice but to fiddle with the Hebrew in order to get some kind of sense out of them. And historically, scholars have found two different ways to do this. One way is to understand this to refer to infants and to women, and that's obviously the approach that Joel prefers with the ESV. The other way is to understand it to refer to oppressors extorting and creditors ruling over. And I think, and many scholars would agree with me, that this is the stronger reading. And if you would like what I think is the best discussion of the complexities related to how to make sense of this Hebrew, Hugh Williamson's International Critical Commentary volume on the first few chapters of Isaiah is wonderful.
Kamala is not the sin that will result in judgment. Kamala is the judgment that is the result for all of our past sins. The judgment is being ruled by women. And, well, why is that a judgment? One, because the Bible said so.
So the Bible probably doesn't say so. As I pointed out, we have to go through some complex reasoning in order to make sense of what the Hebrew says. Now, Joel obviously does not have the competence or the skills or the resources to actually directly engage and grapple with those complexities. But when has a lack of competence ever stopped mediocre men from trying to be in charge of people who are better informed and more competent than they are?
That's why.
Amen.
And two, because women are not fit for that role.
This is just laughably stupid, knuckle-dragging misogyny. Joel does not have the first clue what he's talking about, but he doesn't care. His goal here is structuring power and values in the service of his right-wing authoritarian and social dominance orientation identity politics, and he's not even good at it. And the fit for this video has been the Spawn 200 cover.
Beyond their religious zeal, the Shakers were committed to a life of simplicity, equality, and craftsmanship. In fact, their beliefs in equality of the sexes was pretty revolutionary for the time. Men and women were considered equals in their communities, and both genders shared leadership roles.
I just have some questions. Just some questions. When did speaking up for the poor become a euphemism for socialism or Marxism? I have a question. When did empathy for immigrants become anti-American? Another question. When did compassion for those dying in Gaza or the dispossessed in the West Bank become anti-Semitic or anti-American? I have another question. When did banning black books, or any books for that matter, become a new way to show patriotism, especially if you live in Florida? I have a question. When did lying about an election become a new way to gather support to run for a position? Let me say it this way. How come white folks can riot at the Capitol, destroy property, attack the police, create an insurrection, but Colin Kaepernick taking a knee just drives everybody crazy? I just have to ask some questions. The man lost his job, and it's called anti-American. How is it a convicted felon, a perpetrator of sexual assault, and a serial liar is the nominee for the presidency of the United States? I'm just asking a question. These things are different. Why do white evangelicals vote for a candidate with deeply questionable faith and moral character? I just have some questions. What is it? What is it? Why are we so quick to ban books but not assault weapons? I'm just raising some questions. Why is it we vote to privatize prisons for profit, but we can't vote to raise a teacher's salary? I just have questions. Why is it we spend almost $1 billion in this city to respond to crime, but can't get an ordinance passed in Chicago to invest in the prevention of crime? Why is it? Why? I would submit to you today that what is called the white evangelical church has become morally bankrupt. The space for the elevation of Jesus has become a tuning fork to harmonize slogans that echo the Confederacy.
Alright y'all, I said first video of the day. We are going to be moving on from Soup Theory 101 to Soup Theory 102. And what I want to start with is a chart that I think will be helpful to you guys moving forward. And it is this spectrum right here. And this spectrum is part of the reason I said we have to establish what the standard is. The standard being everyone deserves access to their favorite soup. So if you are still someone who is caught up on, Soup Theory 101, this video is not for you. I'm sorry, just scroll on by. Because from here on out, we are working with the standard that everyone deserves their favorite soup. And I've noticed there's been a lot of black and white thinking. And I've actually used this metric before when discussing other topics, but I think it can be very helpful here. So the standard is everyone deserves access to their favorite soup. Anything you do above that standard is somewhere up here. Anything you do below that standard is somewhere down here. So let's talk examples. So down here we have the standard, everyone deserves soup. Right above that we have the okay. You are doing slightly more than the standard. You are still on the side of moral good. but you're kind of not willing to do much about it. So for okay, I put, I am willing to promote the idea that everyone deserves soup, but I am not ready or willing to engage in the act of getting soup to others because I may have to deal with unpleasant people. So you're willing to promote this cause. You're willing to say out loud, I think everyone deserves access to their favorite soup. I'm willing to tell other people that, but I don't really think I want to engage in this. And a step up from that is good. I am willing to make and serve soup to those I perceive as innocent, but those I do not perceive as innocent cannot be near me for my own well-being. If this is where you are, you're still in the moral right. You're doing okay. You're doing fine. You are still far above the standard. You are engaging in good behavior. You are willing to make and serve soup. This is the they deserve to eat, but not at my table. And that is good. That is fine. And up here we have noble. This is when you go above and beyond. And for noble, I put, I am someone who is willing to serve soup to everyone and engage in the hard work of de-radicalization and healing even the worst people. This is, I am willing to confront people to ensure that everyone has soup. I am willing to sit with people that others perceive as bad and engage in the hard work of getting them to change their mind. You don't have to be up here. No one should judge you for not being up here. This is something that takes a great deal of patience, a great deal of hard work, and not everyone is cut out to do it. But it is also not something you should discourage. Do not discourage someone from a noble act. You need the people who are willing to do this. And I find that a lot of people look at this kind of work as, people sullying themselves or people promoting people's bad behavior, and that is just not the case. It is the active confrontation of that behavior. And it takes courage, it takes patience, it takes love, and that is just something that most people are not going to have the energy for or the personality for, and that's okay. So now we're going to talk about what happens when you dip below the standard. What happens when you dip below the standard of everyone deserves to have soup. So first you have people who are unpleasant. And as an example here, I don't think everyone deserves soup, and I'm going to yell about it. We've seen a lot of these people in the comment section lately. People who are unpleasant are not evil. They are annoying. They discourage progress. They are frustrating. But oftentimes they're just reactive to their own trauma, or they're angry about something, and they're gonna stomp their feet, but they're not gonna do much. And sometimes people who are here can even be brought around with a conversation. This is something they need to fix within themselves, but they aren't bad people. They're just people who are kind of hard to deal with. And next we're gonna move down to bad. I am going to means test those who I think don't deserve soup and actively obstruct the process to prevent those I see as undeserving from getting it. These are people who are willing to take this belief into the voting booth. These are people who will obstruct the entire process of everyone getting soup to prevent certain people from getting it. They are willing to prevent certain people from getting soup, even if it means they don't get soup either. And then we move on to evil. I am a CEO who puts a dangerous chemical in my soup to cut costs, or I am actively in favor of the starvation of people I see as undeserving or lesser, and will do whatever it takes to ensure those people starve, or my favorite soup is made from the bones of children. These are people who need to be removed from society, either temporarily or permanently. They need to be placed somewhere where they cannot harm others. Now, we can have discussions on what exactly that would look like, but these are people who are actively dangerous. They are people who have engaged in antisocial behavior and cannot be trusted to be with broader society. They need to be separated from the population at large. And before we move forward any further, I want you to think of different things and see where they kind of fit on the spectrum here, right? What do you think basic standards of living should be? What do you think falls above those standards, and what do you think falls below them? And I kind of want you to work through this and really engage with it at some point today. And I'm actually not going to be making any more soup test videos today so that you can do this, because I want this to kind of be your focus before we move forward.
If someone someone gets pregnant before they're married in the Amish community and you're not baptized, you have to immediately get baptized as soon as possible. And then once you're baptized, you have to immediately get married as soon as possible. It's a shotgun wedding. They don't have it like a usual wedding. It's shorter. Their usual weddings start at like 7 in the morning and end at midnight. And if it's a shotgun wedding, it would start around 7, 8-ish in the morning and only go till like 6 or so in the evening. So they would cut off like the latter part of it, which is the part where all of the young ones, the youth, which is 6.5 up until you're married, have all of their fun. You can't have that if you consummated a marriage before it happened, so to say, which a lot of them, if they do get pregnant before they're married, they just leave the Amish. Not all of them do. I have an uncle that got pregnant. He got his girlfriend pregnant before they got married. They immediately got baptized and got married. And they're still married today. They're Amish. They have a whole bunch of kids. They're church members and everything. So it definitely happens. I would have wanted it to happen to me. I also had another aunt that it happened to. Like, it's happened plenty of times in my family and in a lot of other Amish.
Hey sinners, it's Father David Michael. Welcome to my confessional. Come on in. So we have a kneeler, if you can kneel. We have a chair, if you prefer to sit. We've got Kleenexers, if you like to cry. We do have a little fan here to keep people cool, but there is no air conditioning in hell. So this is the reason you want to be going to confession. We got this great image of the return of the prodigal son, a reminder of God's mercy. He's always wanting to invite us home. This is the penitent side. Come check out my side. Pulling back the curtain. Welcome. The window is pretty high up, so I've got these nice images of the outside world. Mother Mary here and St. John Vianney here. Crucifix here. I'm getting really tired. I can pump out some pull-ups if I need to. Get a good back workout. Carrying all these sins, you gotta have a strong back. I sit right here. This little switch here, it activates a light outside the confessional to show that there's a priest in here. And then this one activates another light to show that there's a penitent, so it's occupied, so people kind of have a sense of what's going on the outside. I also have this box of religious articles. I've got rosaries in here, holy water. And I have this little statue of St. John Vianney, who is the patron saint of parish priests, and heard many hours in the confessional, so hopefully I have him praying for me. Hearing confessions is one of the greatest joys of my life as a priest. I do my confessional, but you're always welcome. Thank you so much for coming by. I've got some people who need to go to confession, so get out of here. We'll see you later. God bless.
We learned over the last few days that the United States and Israel can blow up your phone if they want to. So I believe that for that reason, and because they're censoring people on the internet, because there's massive media monopolies on social media apps as well as our news media, including our local news media channels. Those are owned by Sinclair Media. You should look that up. It's terrifying. I'd like to present Operation Newsstand, which is a grassroots contributor maintained effort to start getting information in the hands of local communities. The way it works is we get these zines to you. Not just the physical copies, but the original files. So you can print them out and distribute them in your community. You can charge a small fee to recoup your costs. You can give them out to free. They work great in free libraries. You can tape them up at bus stops. You can put them around your school campuses. You can put them around your town. You can use these to start building awareness in your community outside of really distracting social media apps like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. This effort centers around the decolonial idea of making information accessible. Now, at the moment, I'm personally vetting all of these, so they're gonna be in line with Decolonization Covenant's values, which is disability justice, racial justice, and an end to imperialism globally. Included in that is a bunch of education, from how to graph conic sections to 5 songs to sing when you're mad about capitalism. You can learn how to draw a face if you're an artist who wants to develop your skills to be of better service to the work you want to do towards liberation or just towards your own art. You can learn how to participate in Operation Newsstand by getting How to Be a Zine Newsie. I don't personally think your information should blow up in your pocket. I also think you should get a physical copy of it so that people can't go back and change the information in there if they don't want you to have access to some information that they gave you. I think this sort of ungovernable information distribution effort would really make our communities more robust and interconnected. We also always need contributors. There's a free template on the website. There's our submission standards, and we got some tips and tricks right above the Coven Press if you want to submit any of your art or any of your education or any of your organizational information for people to distribute in their communities. Because that shit is crazy. And it's unclear if they can do that to any electronic device with a lithium battery, or they planted specific explosives in those devices. Either way, all of that's insane! And so here's something you can try, because holy fuck, we need to build community alternatives. And even if this is a practice run for organizing a network of people to distribute something, I think it's a good practice run. So I hope you'll participate, and all of these are available for free upon request. Top of the press page, you just send me an email and I'll send you any of these.
Hey girlie, what's up, chica? You headed to the porta potty? Amazing. I guess the only question before you get in there is, what is your porta potty prayer request? Yeah, porta potty prayer request, you know.
Porta potty is the proper, perfect place for prayer. All the prayerful girls and boys, they love to pray in there.
Come on, sing it with me.
Do your business, but make sure to pray before you're done. In the porta potty, praise the Father, Spirit, Son.
What do you mean you don't know the song? We all grew up singing the song. Come on.
Timmy prayed for a new guitar case. Margaret prayed that the Lord would provide her an answer. Charlotte prayed for wisdom and grace. And Connor prayed that his grandma would be cured of cancer. In the porta potty, take a pause, it's time to pray. Porta potty prayer requests, hooray, hooray, hooray.
You know, I actually told the guy who was in here before me, I had him pray for world peace. And then I also had him pray for my coworker Jim. His hemorrhoids are getting out of control.